Hey, it's time for TV Skywriter. Greetings, everybody, and welcome to TV Skywriter. It's kind of an offshoot of the Durham Skywriter, Durham, North Carolina's online community paper. I'm Pat Murray, your host, and I'd like to introduce you to people from, well, basically around the world who have something really interesting to talk about. Just so happens that our guest today is in Durham. That's my town, Bull City. So, Bessie Elmore, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So we're talking about the Straight Talk Support Group. That's what you're all about, at least in terms of what we're talking about tonight. And could you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, Straight Talk Support Group is a support group for family members and friends who have loved ones that are incarcerated.
Okay.
And what we do is we have a home base here in Durham. We have a chapter in Cary. We have a chapter in Salisbury, and we have a chapter in Rocky Mount, but that chapter is inactive at this time. But our intentions, we will start that chapter up again in 2017, and we have some other chapters that are going to be opening in 2017 also.
Yeah, what is the goal of Straight Talk?
The goal of Straight Talk is, as my daughter would say, to be in 100 counties in North Carolina. The goal is to support the families. Like I said, it's for families who have loved ones that are incarcerated. Oftentimes you just hear about the inmates, the returning citizen, but no one ever talks about the problems that the family suffers during the time that their loved one is incarcerated. So the support group was born out of having a place for family members to come, to talk, to get information, because we are a resource center. And we give information on various topics and various things that family members and loved ones can do to not only benefit their loved ones, but also benefit themselves while they're going through this difficult time.
I'm kind of wondering what they go through, because I can imagine, like if you're a kid and your older brother has been put in prison, how does that child deal with that? I mean, you know that if the kids from school hear about it, they're going to tease him.
One of the topics we do is the 5 stages of grief. And the first stage, of course, is denial. You're really in shock because you're saying, this can't be happening to me. And when the person gets locked up, and then there's a trial, and then they're found guilty, and then they go off to prison. So that in itself is, you're almost like in shock, and you experience depression and trauma. And you go through all those stages. Even though your loved one isn't deceased, it's still the 5 stages of grief. And the last one is acceptance. When you get to that point, then you can start looking at, okay, now what do I do? You may get all the way to acceptance. Okay, this is really happening. And then you might go back to depression, because depression is one of those stages. So it changes constantly.
So it's not just an easy straight line.
No, in no way, no.
Okay, now I'm not a parent, so I have to ask this. Does it happen sometimes where the parents thought they were doing a good job and they can't deal with the fact that the child has committed a crime? Does it ever happen where they just walk away and just say, you're not my son anymore? Or
some people do. Some people walk away because they just can't handle the situation. They can't handle the embarrassment, the shame, the ridicule. They may be a person of quote unquote status in the community or status at their country club, and all of a sudden this has happened. And they don't want anyone to know that it's happened. So when someone will say, well, how's Johnny doing? Well, he's away. He went to live with his Uncle Joe and his Aunt Susan, because they don't want that attached to them. So they live in denial. And along with that, if you live in denial long enough, you're going to believe that lie that you've been telling. And then depression is going to set in. And then there's the bargaining, and you go backwards and forth. And then there's the anger. You're angry at yourself, you're angry at your loved one, and then you can be so depressed behind the whole situation because you're saying, well, did I do something wrong? Did we not give him a good home? Did we not teach him good manners? Should we have kept better eye on them? And then you get to that final stage of acceptance. But then, like I said, you can still go back to the anger again because now you got to travel to visit this person and they're like maybe 2 to 4 hours away. So that puts a dent in your budget because you have to travel to visit and then you have to send money. Then there's the phone calls. So it's so much that goes on with the family that people don't even realize.
Are there ways for families to get formal counseling, or is attending the Straight Talk support group enough for those really, really tough problems?
Well, we're not a clinician, and I make that very, very clear. I've run support groups for 15 years. I am not a clinician, I'm a counselor. But we do have available resources. We resource people out. We give them information where they can find a therapist to go to talk about what's going on. People suffer in silence. We found that by having a support group, it gives them an outlet because they're able to sit with people who have a frame of reference. Mm-hmm. My son was incarcerated here in North Carolina for 24 and a half years. My daughter and I didn't have a support group. We only had each other. But having each other still wasn't enough because that was her brother.
How did you get through it? How did you get through it?
Well, we talked with each other, but it was still different because that's her only brother, her younger brother. So I couldn't understand some of the things that she was feeling. And my being his mother, there was no way she could understand what I was feeling. Mm-hmm. So we knew that we both were coming from a different place, but we could talk with one another about how I'm angry about traveling this weekend. I'm angry about she not going this weekend to visit. Why aren't you going this weekend to visit your brother? So we had our issues, but we worked through them.
Wow. Now, I want to get back to Straight Talk Support Group, but I want to backpedal just a bit. You were mentioning counseling, people actually needing counseling.
Yes.
What kind of resources do low-income people have if they need counseling?
Well, they have some of the same resources because one of our therapists that I'm very close with, if a person cannot afford the going rate, he does work with them on a sliding scale. So we do have therapists that we have a relationship with that will work with individuals on a sliding scale. If they're members, you have to be a member. Being a member of the support group comes with its own little perks. So when you're a member, we can do a referral letter to send you to one of these therapists.
Well, they always say that membership does have its rewards.
Right. Now, everybody that comes to our support group aren't members. The only requirement to enter a support group is to sign a confidentiality form. And if you do not sign that form, you will not be allowed in the group. And those are the only rules that we abide by. Now, to become a member, like I said, it does have its perks because we're able to do an array of things if you become a member. And to become a member, it doesn't cost a lot of money.
I know one thing that you said the last time that I interviewed you was I don't know if it has anything to do with membership, but I do know that you were saying that there are really, really great advantages to having your loved one who's incarcerated close to you, that is in the same state. I mean, I'm from Chicago, and a friend of mine, his brother was in prison in Louisiana, which means that they never saw each other.
That is a big issue. Well, I'm not going to say most, but there are many people that are incarcerated here in North Carolina where their loved ones live in different states. And when they come to visit, we have accommodated several families that came from out of state to visit their loved ones. We recognize the hardship that a lot of people have to travel from New Jersey, New York, to come to North Carolina. Okay, if you get here, first of all, being in a conversation with us and saying, I want to come visit Johnny, but we can't afford to pay for a hotel, or we only have enough money to pay for half a night. We will provide at certain hotels. Right now was just a Comfort Inn that we have used to accommodate family members that were coming out of state.
I know you had also mentioned that you can try to see if you can get certain people who are in prison in other states moved closer to their families.
Well, no, right now we're just dealing with North Carolina. Okay. So if your loved one is 4 hours away and you have to be a member and you are having difficulties visiting him, a medical condition, or it has to be an issue. It's not like, I want Johnny moved to Hillsborough, so I can only travel 20 minutes to visit him. It's not like that. It has to be something where we can go to the Department of Public Safety, write a letter on that person's behalf, and that inmate has to get on something called a transfer list. And it's a process. Sometimes it works. Most time it does, but not all the time. I would never give anyone the indication of having, I got it like that, because I don't. It is a process, and nothing is 100%. But so far, we've been very instrumental in working with the Department of Public Safety to have a individual move closer where their family member can visit.
I read somewhere that that's really important. Now, I know a lot of people don't like to talk about people who are in prison, but they're people too. And I was reading somewhere that in particular young people really do much better in prison if they get family visits and if they don't lose contact with their families.
Right. It's very important. It's important in many ways. One is that the prison itself knows, okay, Johnny has a family out here that cares about him, and they write, and they're going to be checking on Johnny. So that's very important. And then Johnny knows, okay, my mother, my sister, they really care about me. I know when I get out of here that I'm going to do my best to where I don't come back here again. And here's another thing that's important at the support group. We give people tools that they can use so to start working on a plan so when Johnny does come home, those issues that Johnny and the family had before he got incarcerated, some of those issues are worked out as much as possible before Johnny comes back home, because it's extremely important to work on those issues. So when you come home, it's less issues to work on, because there's still going to be issues, because now you got probation, because now it's mandatory probation when you come home. You have probation, you have fines you have to pay. So that's still, until you get that job, your family is helping you with all of this.
I didn't know they paid fines. What kind of fines?
Well, if you had child support, if you had old tickets that you had before you were incarcerated, they just didn't go away.
Oh, okay.
No, they didn't go away, and the money can accumulate. When my son went to prison, before he could get his driver's license, he had old parking tickets that were 24 years old. And during that time, that money had built up. So New Jersey didn't know he was incarcerated. So we had to write letters and ask for like a prayer of judgment. And they some of the places, well, he only had them in 3 places, they reduced the ticket back to its original value.
Oh,
But
okay. Okay.
all of those things,
So
but
you
it
mean,
could have been like $500 to $1,000.
so you mean like interest accrued, that kind of thing?
Yes.
Okay. So you said
Yeah.
prayer of judgment. That means give him a break?
Well, you're asking for a prayer of judgment saying, I've been gone for 25 years. There was no way I could have satisfied these tickets. 25 years ago, I didn't even remember I had the parking tickets. So now I'm just getting out of prison. I don't have a job. I need my driver's license so I can get a job. So I'm asking for a prayer of judgment to reduce it to whatever amount you can reduce it to.
Do you need an attorney?
No, you can do it yourself.
But you have to know to do that.
That's right.
See,
So that's why
there's no manual for getting through this, is there?
No, that's why we have compiled this information. So when people come to our support group, we're able to give them this information. Because how would they know? How would they know?
There's no way to know in advance. Yeah.
Right.
Wow. So when is your next meeting, and is it in Durham?
Our next meeting is in Durham, and it's on the 15th of November at 7 o'clock at 3500 Westgate Drive, Suite 504.
Okay. And the name of the business or whatever is Health Touch, right?
Health Touch, yes.
It's like a collection of health professionals.
Right, but we have signs out, so we have signs that let them know that we're there too. Yes.
Oh, good. I wonder, Christmas is coming up pretty soon, and thank goodness your son is out. But what about all the other sons and daughters who are in prison over the holidays? Is there any way to help them? I can imagine they're pretty darn depressed.
Well, the facilities have a contract with a company, and it's a holiday package. And what they do is they give the guys this little brochure, and they can order stuff. They check it off, what they would like to have. I think they can have up to $100 worth of items. And they send it to their family member or loved one. And the loved one sends the order form and the money off to the company. And the guys and the ladies receive their packages. Now, everybody can't afford to do $100 or $50 for their loved ones. So what we have done in the past is that we have picked people. My son will let us know, well, Johnny doesn't have, his grandmother can't afford to do a package for him. So we would do packages for some of the guys that, didn't have family members that couldn't afford to have a package for the holidays.
Well, again, some people are saying, why are they coddling those criminals? But they're people, and they have families.
We have to remember, just because you're in prison, you're still a human being.
And you still have people who love you if you're lucky.
That's right. That's right. You just made a mistake. Everybody, one of my, I have a degree in accounting, and I used to work at a bank and return items, large return items. And when you're working with millions of dollars on paper, all those zeros start to look alike. From 100,000 to 1 million is only separated by a zero. And one night I couldn't balance out, and I was just having a difficult time. So my manager came over to me, and I said to him, I keep making this mistake. So he says, Bessie, what is that you have in your hand? So I said, it's a pencil. He said, what's on the back of that pencil? I said, an eraser. He said, well, when people stop making mistakes, they'll stop putting erasers on the back of pencils.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That was a good one. I don't know if this is true of your son, but I have read that a lot of people who are in prison are way behind in terms of education. I heard that, I don't know if this is true. They said 80% of inmates have very, 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 very low reading and math skills.
Really?
So is there a way to, I mean, you don't want them to come out less equipped than they were when they went in. Is there some way for them to, I mean, I heard that prison is all about punishment nowadays. So is there a way for them to get their skills up before they, those who know they're
Well,
will be eventually coming out of prison?
Let me dispel a myth. Okay. Everybody that's in prison is not uneducated.
Okay.
All of our young black men, black and brown men that are in prison are not failed the sixth grade. You have some that graduated high school. You have some that went off to college.
Okay.
They just made mistakes, whether they sold drugs or got caught up in the drug scene, and they were a victim of circumstance and someone died, a drug deal gone bad. But everybody that is in prison is not uneducated. Now, early on in North Carolina, inmates were able to go to school. They could go to college. They could get their GED. I think they can still get their GED. Mm-hmm. But I don't think they're doing college anymore. And the library is not the perfect place to educate yourself. The libraries in prison. And I'm only going by what my son has shared with me. Mm-hmm. But when my son went to prison, my son was a very intelligent young man who made a mistake. So what my daughter and I decided to do was to educate him even more now because he had time on his hand. Mm-hmm. So we sent him an array of books, from poetry to politics to philosophy, every book. We had our own little book club before Oprah started hers, because all three of us would read the same book, and on visitation day, we would have a discussion. So after a while, some of the guys would ask him, what are you and your sister, what are you guys reading today? So they started asking for books. Nice. So we would send books. So then the facility changed their policy that you can't send books anymore. You can only go through Amazon or Barnes and Noble. So that's a myth that every young black and brown person that goes to prison only has.
I wasn't saying, I didn't mention race. I just read that 80% of the people.
No, so, that's not true.
Because I guess when I'm in the long run, what I'm really trying to ask you is there a way for them to prepare for their release? Whether they're educated or not, what can they do to get ready?
That's a very good question. And that's another reason why the support group is important. So families can start preparing their families can, and I don't want to keep using my son as an example, but he was my test dummy. Because I wanted to know, this young man is going to be behind. I don't want him so far behind. So let's keep him up to date on what's going on out here by reading current things, constantly keeping him up to date. So with the support group, with the resource center, what we do is we offer that same information to family members that come to our group, keeping their loved ones up to date and current on what's going on in this world out here, and what are you going to do when you come home? Exactly. What do you want to do? Start thinking out of the box. What do you want to do when you come home from prison?
And then when they are released, is there help for them?
Well, yes, there's organizations out here. Reentry now is a big thing. Everybody's talking about reentry. Mm-hmm. And there's many resources, but you got to get plugged into these resources. And you have to be aggressive enough to want to get involved, because Ban the Box, the Second Chance Alliance, the Criminal Justice Resource Center downtown Durham, There are organizations out here to help individuals. Now, are they going to be able to help everybody? Absolutely not. I won't say yes. Are they going to be able to help 50%? I don't know. I don't know the statistics on that. But that's why it's important to start this planning before they come home.
That's really great. That's really great. I know it's so important to be ready because I know I'm sure they must go through some real mental turmoil being in prison.
Of course, of
being
course.
Released, I can't imagine you can be released and then, okay, I'll start my job Monday and I'm ready to go. I'm whole, I'm healthy, and no problems. I know it's not easy.
No, because now you need medical. You need a place to stay. If your family's not here, your family lives in New York, they release you here in Durham. Oh, I don't know anybody. What am I going to do? So getting plugged in.
I didn't even think of that. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, we have 1 minute left. We have about a minute left. So tell us about your website, straighttalksupportgroup.org.
Yes, please. Our support group is www.straighttalksupportgroup.org. We're doing a fundraiser. Yes, go on our webpage, look around, hear interview. My daughter, my son, and I have done interviews. Hear us and donate.
And where does the money go?
That would be.
What do you do with the money?
The money will go to our developing the resource center. Putting together these manuals, these packets for families and our returning citizens, and giving them, it's like a guide, the 1, 2, 3 guide, 411, getting the information on where to go, when to go, how to go, and what to do when you go.
Wonderful. So stay in contact with me because I really want to help you dispense that information.
Well, thank you. And thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you so much, Bessie Elmore, for being on the show. And thank you for watching, folks. Before we go, do you have any shout outs?
Oh, yes. I would like to give a big shout out to all of the guys out there and all of the families that are listening, and to all the returning citizens. I wish you well and send you love, hope, and peace and love.
Love that. Thank you so much, Bessie Elmore. And folks, I do hope you enjoyed that episode of TV Skywriter, and be sure to read Durham, North Carolina's online community paper, the Durham Skywriter, at durhamskywriter.com. Also, if you'd like to be a guest on TV Skywriter, contact me via Twitter at Durham Skywriter. And with that, have a beautiful evening. Ciao for now.
Thank you.